It's Sunday, August 14th, 2022. Um, I don't even know where to begin. I'm here. I guess let's start with that. Um, I have this special ear shape. I've seen it on a photo of a past president for Ancestry and Express Genetics of Teddy Roosevelt, who had a collar brass of a USV. V. I'm not sure what that means exactly. I know it's incredibly important, but I don't have an individual at that level of intelligence that I could say, "Excuse me, could you just what is that? What's I mean, I know it's important, especially in the history of America, North America's like so and then there's a couple of other heritage pieces or lineage pieces and past president pieces in this Northeast and this North America. Um, so now this frightens me. I am having trouble with walking after some health events. So I am Lynn took me for a pair of shoes. I was fortunate. Right in this section of the shoe, I've been walking so much. It's only a couple months, and it just shows in the doctor of kinesthetics, as well as the back wore away again. And this is on the right foot. On the left foot, it also wore away in the same spot, but I don't have the same wearing in the heel. So anyhow, Lynn brought me for a new pair of shoes, which was very nice. Um, and as we were walking, we went to a place called Roosevelt Field. It's the sign says Simon Properties on it. We went into the shoe store. So as we were walking, Lynn wanted to go to Roosevelt Field for whatever reason. And then while we were there, I was like an ancillary thing because I needed shoes. So I went with them. As we're walking, there was a um, display. I think they call it a kiosk, um, of different figures. One of them being the Buddha. Now, I had said to Lynn the other night about her earlobe having like an artistry eye, that her ears reminded me, like her earlobe was like a little larger than normal. It reminded me of like a Buddha. And then later on, that comes back up in a context, and I'm just like, because originally when she got married to Lewis, she looked like the Pieta in like the Basilica in Rome. Etched out of marble, beautiful and gorgeous. But over the last 7 decades in North America, it has morphed into more of looking like the Buddha with the earlobe and the whatever. And I don't know Masonic symbology and signaling, whatever that's about. Um, so then afterwards, we sat in the food court. I would not eat with them. The food court no longer has anything that I recognize. Johnny Rockets got knocked out. Um, and as I looked around, there was Taste of India in the food court. The pizzeria is now called Bleecker Street. And there's a whole lot of other stuff, like there's the detox, whatever. There's a lot of symbology of, and then there's something called the Beat. So in BEET. So anyhow, so I'm sitting there and Lois and Linda are eating. I won't eat with them. And I'm looking around the food court and I'm just sitting in silence. Um as they whatever. And I'm observing how my mother no longer looks like this beautiful marble statue in Rome. She now looks like the home decor sold product in the mall that looks like a Buddha. And I'm just like, that is not very nice. It's not kind, caring, but it is honest. And I'm really unhappy with the level of care and respect here. Now, we're in this place called Roosevelt. We have some whatever with ancestry, with past presidents, and some special bloodline thing that has not been much to speak about at the moment. And so, not sure what to do about that. And then I'm looking around the food court, and Lynn and Lou are pretending like everything's fine. And I'm like, really? That's interesting. I was like, because the two of you look very out of place in this Roosevelt Field food court. I was like, the people around you, I was like, you stick out like a sore thumb. Just being yourselves. And my father asked me to go on the phone. And even though I wasn't eating, my response to him is, Lewis, it is unbecoming to go on the phone at the table. I was like, it's bad manners. What, were you raised in a barn? Something that along the lines of like when I was a kid, again, that banter back and forth. So they were finishing up, and I just sat there and was observing what was in the food court, enjoying food in this Roosevelt field that no longer even looks like Roosevelt children. Like, I was it, as was Linda and Lou. And I'm thinking to myself, where have I seen this scene before this week? And I'm like, oh, hold on Channel 2, on See the BS this morning, they had a special in my 43rd year letting me know that there's some animosity and some event that happened in India where they were really unhappy about something called a colonial. For me, that's an architecture style of building. I don't really have much more attachment to it at the moment. I don't really have much language in the human category on that subject. But it seems they're really angry. And now all of a sudden it looks like they're in New York in a Simon property in Roosevelt's Field on Long Island, which is Nassau County, just outside of Queens County. So, Llewellyn said something, and I said, Lewis, I said, as I look around here, and I realize that you, Linda, and I don't look like we fit in at all, I was like, what upsets me the most is the fact that I have a son. You are going to die, and he is going to need a wife. In fact, I have 4 sons that are going to need wives. And as I look around this mall, I do not see one even possibility of a wife for any of my children. How are they to survive? I mean, I don't have a proper husband. That's already been a problem since the get-go, that relationship. But now my children are going to be what? Denied wives as well? This gets really confusing. In what the hell did you all do? And what did you punish me with before I even arrived? And why have children at that point? So here's what they put on to educate me and some after the fact. It says New York City. It says See the BS this morning, and this is Saturday morning. I think it's August 13th, 2022. Things I've never heard of in all of my education, whatever and wherever that was. None of the institutions or the whatever, whether it be the Catholic, whether it be the public, whether it be the like Ivy League private, whatever I was originally in, none of the programs spoke about a country by the name of India. I heard that word misused, misappropriated, or used in other context, but never for like an outside country that had people. They did not speak on that particular country at all. But here we are.
75 years ago this weekend saw the end of Britain's colonial.
So 75 years. Lou and Lynn, I think if I just turned 44, they're either 73 or 74. So this is 75 years ago. So older than even they are. And they've never spoken on this country, India, on British things. It was not household speak at all. And there were other things going on. But yet, when I look around that food court in this Roosevelt field in the 20th century, in 20 years into a 20th century, I don't even see any other Roosevelt children other than myself. I was the only representative there today.
Rule of India. The nation of 340 million people was divided, creating two independent countries, Muslim majority Pakistan and Hindu majority India. It's a moment in history known as partition. It triggered a massive forced migration and left an estimated 2 million people dead in religious violence.
Now, in other worldly news, what I have heard about is that the Americans had something called a Vietnam War, which to me is the American version of a Holocaust. They just didn't preface it as so when they taught it. But I did hear that a lot of really great patriotic Americans got drafted into, like a backdraft in a fire almost, into this situation. They got sent to some foreign land and very few of them came home, which means in the breeding pool and going forward into Lynn and Lou's generation and then my generation, there would be less selection of future presidential children at a DNA that does not fit some of the other what's here now. And even though this is a very unpopular topic, I would imagine, since nobody ever speaks of it, then in Europe, around the same time or just the generation before, they had the Holocaust. But in America, America had the Vietnam War, where they just like backdraft and sucked up all of like the good, patriotic, amazing American children, sent them off, and then there's less population of the original migration. So it leaves me to wonder, in this, they're calling this partition thing, which I've never heard about, a mass exodus of some sort. Well, why are they exiting there and showing up over here? They weren't part of the Great Migration. So it gets a little confusing.
MTS Tayab looks at how the trauma of the event still affects South Asians generations later.
An unprecedented mass migration has begun as millions of people make their way across borders, the consequence of a century-long British strategy of divide and rule.
Never has the Marvel Cinematic Universe introduced viewers to a moment in history.
And now what's even more disgusting is in America. I heard on the radio today that Hollywood, like, you can't even give the presentation of the Oscars away. I have no idea what that really means in Masonic speak. But Hollywood used to be, it would set a bar. I mean, like, there were just a few movies. They had huge impact because there's so few of them, and they were so perfectly casted to represent what America was. And then it passed around the rest of the whatever as this is who we are. You don't even have that today. You got any Joe Schmo making a movie, making a promotion out of it. It means absolutely nothing. Nobody's celebrated. I mean, the great stars, I couldn't even tell you who they were or what they were cast in or what relevance their movies had because there were so many going in so many opposite directions. They canceled out. I mean, it is a canceled culture within itself. It's terrible. They had such a monumental chance and they blew it. And now, because they blew it, they've got Bollywood in Hollywood. I mean, look at this. They're giving her now some DC Marvel comics. They're calling her MS Marvel. I'm like, is that to go along with the MS-13 gangs that are drug slinging on Long Island and like really frightening the like whatever's left out there? I'm just curious because like the labels match. I just don't know why they're making her a superhero. What kind of peace treaty is that? Talk about misleading the public on one's motives.
Quite like this. And transported one of its superheroes on a journey of self-discovery to the site of one of the largest and deadliest mass migrations in modern human history. But that's
what I don't see them saying is that she wound up in New York at the moment. Because, again, I was just in a place named after a former president, being Roosevelt Field. And I was the only Roosevelt ancestor, it seemed, in the building that I could visually, I mean, when I look out amongst the crowd, there was one. The last one. Why is that?
exactly what the Disney Plus limited series Ms. Marvel does. Iman Vellani plays Kamala Khan, a Muslim Pakistani American teenager from New Jersey who gained superpowers from a mysterious bangle that once belonged to her grandmother, who disappeared during the partition of British India.
Now, Jersey, I had relatives. Lewis had relatives of importance. They were farmers. He used to go to a New Jersey farm, as well as Canada and some other places. And it was really important in one day. Again, I don't know about all these newcomers. And then now they're like writing themselves some ticket into history. I mean, there's another generation coming up that's really, I don't even know how to explain to them. Like, this is not right. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it's coming on like full strength. I don't know where like the good guys went in this, but they seem to have disappeared completely.
75 years ago. Fatima Asghar wrote the acclaimed episode, which tackles the painful history head on.
Why does what happened in 1947 still resonate so strongly with so many South Asians that when creating Ms. Marvel, the series, it became such a big story arc?
There's so much silence that has been around partition, right? There's silence that the West has had around partition, but there's also
Yeah, because nobody knows how they wound up in the West. No idea. I don't know who pushed their forces into the United States. They haven't talked about this partition. I've heard something from the Africans called apartheid, which they're really upset about. And I'm like, No, your blood will kill me. There's definite reason why there used to be blood tests and some separation without anxiety. I'm a little confused how that all of a sudden, like, caution just got thrown to the wind. I mean, is that the POS circle that, like, it doesn't matter how or who they choose as a partner? Like, now they're just sounding and, like, sculpting and landscaping the future. I mean, putting all of the NEGs in jeopardy, it gets confusing. Where do I get, like, itemized NEG help? There has to be a community somewhere on Earth where they still exist in large quantity.
Violence in South Asian communities and the South Asian diaspora around partition. In part, it's because it's such a traumatic event. We've become increasingly more aware.
You know what's traumatic? Traumatic is being a Roosevelt relative and going to something called a Roosevelt field and looking around and not seeing any others like myself and seeing a whole lot of, like, what is going on, arriving in large packs, might I add, and not knowing, like, who redesigned the food court at Simon Properties and Roosevelt Field, and why now with shoppers is it, what is going on? And why is there no communication and no answers? Does that have to do? I saw it yesterday. I was watching Creole. I love to listen to them in Creole. I don't know. I love French. I love their Creole, like, nuances of the words, but they're spun in a different context. It sounds very pleasant to my ear. It just does. And so I'm listening to this man talk on this very hot topic, and he's going in and out of English and Creole, and he's saying something about, and this was on this, like, one of the broadcast stations on Verizon, and he was talking about how he got a contract with AT&T, and that's how he got in the country, in les États-Unis. And I'm like, no, if I break down les États, like the Etas, like the sagas, right? The sagas of the holy ones. Interesting. Because they predated I mean, like, we were here, and then there's some kind of cosmic exchange in the big universe and galaxy thing going on. So we return, and here we are, or here I am, and Alexander, in cosmic relation. And now all of a sudden, I do believe in one of the holy texts somewhere in the here and there, they do mention this. I also believe that that's what they based this cosmic struggle, like, all the holy books and things that are not easily translated into modern day, they were turned into some cinematography, visual art tool. I don't know with whose agreement. And that's where these, like, superheroes and supervillains come from. Again, in the SCI of sci-fi, I'm just a little confused since I've been almost, like, left in the dark. I spoke about the CNC Music Factory and being put into a dark gymnasium with some neon strobe lights with the same group of children at junior high school that I went to elementary school with, some other additions from Laurel Hollow, and all of a sudden, because some of us were taken for ballroom dancing with gloves, white gloves and things. It was a little confusing what to do with this very large new style music, and it was just like, we all looked at each other like, we just don't know what to do with this, what is it, what do they call it? And why is it in our gymnasium?
Trauma lives in the body and it's passed down through generations. And so we can feel some of this pain even if we don't have words for it.
Generational trauma is central to Ms. Marvel's origin story, like in this poignant scene between Kamala and her grandmother, portrayed by legendary Pakistani film actress Samina Ahmed.
I'm still trying to figure out who I am.
Now, there was something that was presented as Bollywood, which was this whatever, and whoever funds that, I have no idea. And then there's Hollywood, which is North American. So I'm not quite sure where this break out of Bollywood and into Hollywood came from. But at Holly, it's really frightening. It almost reminds me of like this bait and switch they got going on right now with carbon credits to make something carbon neutral just so they can pollute the atmosphere more in some other category of ill-begots.
My passport is Pakistani. My roots are in India. And in between all of this, there is a border. There is a border marked with blood and pain.
Those borders were drawn in just 5 weeks by a British civil servant who had never traveled further east than Paris or understood India's religious, linguistic, and cultural diversity. After 2 centuries of brutal colonial rule, Britain's exit from the colony it plundered such a vast fortune from quickly turned into a bloodbath.
Fleeing from their looted, blood-stained towns comes a new exodus.
It's estimated up to 2 million people were killed and around 20 million were displaced as they tried to make their way to what became Muslim-majority East and West Pakistan or Hindu-majority India.
By 1858, the crown ruled all of India.
A painful past other
So it's confusing because when the crown was there and there was money and people to work with and whatever, they were unhappy. The crown, they obviously must have upset the crown left, and then they were upset that what? There was not enough food, there was not enough stuff this gets really, really dangerous the longer into modern society we go with this many variable stories descending upon a land without announcement and then essentially snuffing out what's always been. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. And here, this is how they preface it. I don't know if you can even see that. So that came on this week. Then I went for new shoes because the treads are worn on these in, I don't know which facility is manufacturing and sending in things. But again, this is where I'm at. It's also, there's history in these lands. There's history in the monetary system. And I see a lot of attempts to destroy a lot of different pieces that are thoroughly concerning to me in New York. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. And it's really upsetting that my mom is now some kind of religious effigy or idol of some sort with these large earlobes and this Buddha type whatever. And as she was standing there, and I knew I was not going to be ordering food with her, and listening to her order this food that is comfort in this area for her, in this food court that no longer resembles the food court that she'd prefer to go to. Um, just thinking to myself as she stands there, it is not going to be my future. That is, it's, obesity is not hereditary. It only is if you allow it to be, but I don't want to have the same food habits. I don't want the same exercise patterns. I don't want to sit. I mean, I've never wanted to sit at a desk in front of a computer and make that my life, ever. I was totally against it. But unfortunately, in this world, they've taken the physicality out of and relationship management where you can go speak face to face, you can go handshake. It's like that no longer exists anymore. I don't understand how that happened. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza, and today's August 14th, 2022.